My name is Rachel Morrison. I'm 45 years old, and I'm a certified financial planner from Denver, Colorado. 2 months ago, my husband called me from his car on his way home from work. We talked for 3 minutes about what to have for dinner and whether we needed to pick up our daughter from soccer practice. He said, "Love you," and I heard a click. But he hadn't actually hung up. The call stayed connected, and what I heard next made my blood run cold. "She bought it, completely clueless," my husband said, his voice suddenly different, colder, sharper. "No, I told you, the life insurance is solid, $2 million, plus her 401k and the business. We're talking close to $4 million once she's gone. The plan's already in motion. 2 weeks, maybe 3. A hiking accident. She slips, falls, hits her head. I'm the devastated widower. You comfort me. 6 months later, we're together. It's perfect." I sat frozen in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my husband of 18 years discuss murdering me like he was planning a business transaction with his mistress, who I later discovered was my own business partner. That accidentally open phone line saved my life, because what he didn't know was that I was recording every word. And what he definitely didn't know was that I'm a financial planner who specializes in forensic accounting and fraud detection. And I was about to use every skill I had to expose his plot and destroy him. Before I tell you how one forgotten phone call led to his arrest and conviction, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop your location in the comments. I want to know where you're watching from, because this story might save your life. Let me take you back to the beginning, when I thought I'd married my soulmate. I met Daniel Morrison in the spring of 1998 at a continuing education course for financial professionals in Chicago. I was 27 years old, 3 years into my career as a financial advisor at a boutique wealth management firm in Denver. He was 30, working as an insurance broker in Boulder, and he sat next to me during a seminar on estate planning strategies for high net worth clients. "This speaker is putting me to sleep," he whispered during a particularly dry section about trust taxation. "Want to sneak out for coffee?" I should have said no. The seminar cost $100 and I needed the continuing education credits, but something about his mischievous smile and the genuine intelligence in his eyes made me say yes. We spent 3 hours in that coffee shop talking about everything except finance. He told me about growing up in Montana, about his father who'd been a fly fishing guide, and his mother who'd taught elementary school. About how he'd become an insurance broker because he genuinely wanted to help families protect what mattered most. About his dreams of starting his own firm someday, of building something meaningful. I told him about my father, an immigrant from Ireland who'd worked construction but taught himself accounting at night school and eventually started his own small firm. About how he'd died of a heart attack when I was 22, leaving my mother with almost nothing because he'd never bought life insurance. He was always going to do it next year. About how that loss had driven me to help other families avoid the same financial devastation. "That's why you do this," Daniel said, his hand covering mine across the table. "Not for the money or prestige. You actually care about protecting people." "Is that naive?" I asked. "That's beautiful. Don't ever lose that." We dated long distance for 6 months. Denver to Boulder was only 30 miles, but our work schedules made it feel like 1,000. Daniel drove to see me every weekend, showing up at my tiny apartment with takeout and wine, ready to hear about my week. He celebrated when I closed a major client. He listened when I complained about difficult colleagues. He never once made me feel like my career ambitions were too much or threatening. A year after we met, Daniel proposed on a hiking trail in Rocky Mountain National Park. Fitting, since we'd bonded over our shared love of Colorado's mountains. He'd packed a picnic, led me to a clearing with views of the Continental Divide, and gotten down on one knee with a simple sapphire ring. My birthstone. "Rachel, You're the smartest, most genuine person I've ever met. You make me want to be better, do better, build something worth being proud of. Will you marry me and let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you?" I said yes, with tears streaming down my face. How could I not? Daniel was kind, supportive, ambitious, without being ruthless, and he genuinely seemed to love everything about me, including my career drive and independence. We married in September 1999 in a ceremony at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, surrounded by mountains and close family. I wore my mother's vintage lace dress, altered to fit. Daniel wore a navy suit and couldn't stop smiling. During his vows, he promised to be my partner in building a life filled with love, adventure, and mutual success. "Rachel," he said, his voice breaking with emotion, "I promise to always support your dreams, celebrate your victories, and be the safe place you come home to. I promise to be honest, faithful, and devoted. I promise that what's mine is yours, and we'll build our future together as true equals." Our first 5 years of marriage were exactly that, a partnership. Daniel started his own insurance brokerage, and I continued climbing the ladder at my firm. We bought a beautiful craftsman house in the Wash Park neighborhood of Denver, with a small yard perfect for the family we wanted. We hiked every weekend we could, exploring Colorado's 14ers and hidden trails. We traveled Ireland to visit my extended family, Montana to see Daniel's parents, trips to Europe and South America mixing business with pleasure. We had our daughter, Emma, in 2004. Daniel was present for every moment: the pregnancy, the birth, the sleepless newborn months. When Emma was born, I watched this strong man cry as he held his daughter for the first time. "She's perfect, Rachel. You're perfect. I'm the luckiest man alive." Daniel was an involved father from day one. He split night feedings with me. He took paternity leave and actually used it to care for Emma instead of working. When I went back to the office, we hired a nanny together, and Daniel made sure he was home by 6 every night for dinner and bedtime. He never once suggested I should scale back my career to be more available. Instead, he adjusted his own schedule to make our family work. "You're an amazing mother and an amazing professional," he'd tell me. "You don't have to choose." When Emma was 3, I made a bold career move. My closest colleague at the firm, Jennifer Hayes, and I decided to start our own financial planning practice, Morrison Hayes Financial Partners. We'd been the top 2 advisors at our firm for years. We complemented each other's skills perfectly, and we were tired of working for someone else's vision. Daniel was my biggest cheerleader. "You should absolutely do this. You and Jennifer are brilliant together. You'll build something incredible." Starting the firm was terrifying and exhilarating. Jennifer handled investment management and portfolio strategy. I specialized in comprehensive financial planning and forensic accounting. We worked 80-hour weeks those first 2 years, building our client base, establishing our reputation, proving ourselves in Denver's competitive wealth management landscape. Daniel never complained about the long hours. He picked up more of the parenting responsibilities. He brought me dinner at the office when I was working late. He bragged about me to anyone who would listen. "My wife started her own firm. She's a badass." By 2010, Morrison Hayes Financial Partners was thriving. We managed over $200 million in client assets. We'd won awards. We'd been featured in Denver Business Journal. I was making more money than I'd ever imagined, over $300,000 a year, with Jennifer making similar amounts. We'd arrived. Daniel's insurance brokerage was successful too, though on a smaller scale. He specialized in life insurance and disability coverage for small business owners, and he'd built a loyal client base. He made good money, around $150,000 annually, and seemed genuinely happy with his work. Our family life was rich and full. Emma was thriving in school. a bright and curious child who loved reading and soccer. We took family vacations, ski trips to Breckenridge, beach vacations in Mexico, a memorable trip to Ireland when Emma was 8. We hosted dinner parties with friends. We were active in our community. Our marriage felt solid, tested by years and challenges, but fundamentally strong. My friends envied our relationship. "You and Daniel have it all figured out," they'd say. "Career success, financial security, a great kid, and you actually still like each other." And it was true. We did still like each other. Daniel was my best friend, my partner, my safe place. After 15 years of marriage, we still had date nights. We still laughed together. We still talked about our dreams and plans. I looked at our life, the business I'd built, the family we'd created, the financial security we'd achieved, and felt profoundly grateful. Daniel would hold me at night and whisper, "We did it, Rachel. We built exactly the life we wanted. You're my everything." I believed him completely. I believed our marriage was unshakable. I believed the vows he'd spoken were sacred. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have possibly imagined, was that Daniel had become deeply resentful of my success. That while he claimed to be proud of me, he was actually humiliated that his wife out-earned him by $150,000 a year. That he'd started an affair with Jennifer, my business partner and closest friend, 3 years earlier. That they'd been planning to eliminate me and take control of my assets, my business, and my daughter. And that they'd decided the cleanest solution was murder disguised as an accident. The man I'd trusted for 18 years was already planning my death. He just needed the right opportunity. And he'd decided that a hiking trip, our shared passion, our place of joy, would be the perfect place to kill me. What Daniel didn't know was that financial planners who specialize in forensic accounting are trained to spot patterns, follow money trails, and document evidence. And when I accidentally overheard his murder plot, I would use every skill I'd developed over 20 years to gather proof, build a case, and make sure he spent the rest of his life in prison. The first sign something was wrong came in early 2015, about 16 years into our marriage. Daniel started making comments about our finances that felt off. We'd always had completely transparent finances, joint accounts, shared access to everything, open communication about money. But suddenly, he was asking strange questions. "Rachel, if something happened to you, what would happen to your half of the business?" "What do you mean, if something happened?" "I'm just thinking about estate planning. We should make sure everything's structured properly. If you died, would I automatically inherit your ownership stake? Or would Jennifer have buy-sell provisions?" "Daniel, we have a partnership agreement that Jennifer and I drafted with our attorney. There's life insurance to fund a buyout if either of us dies. You know this. We reviewed it when we started the firm." "Right. But how much is that insurance policy worth now? With the business valued at what, 10 million? Your half is worth 5 million, right?" Something about the way he calculated it, so quickly, so precisely, bothered me. "Why are you asking about this?" "I'm an insurance broker, Rachel. I think about risk management. I just want to make sure our family is protected if something happens." "Nothing's going to happen. I'm 43 and healthy." "Of course. I'm just being cautious." But it didn't feel cautious. It felt calculating. Still, I pushed the concern away. Daniel was an insurance broker. Of course, he thought about mortality and risk. That was literally his job. The second red flag appeared a month later when I noticed Daniel had been researching hiking accidents. I saw his browser history when I borrowed his laptop to check my email. Searches for fatal hiking falls, Colorado. How common are hiking deaths? Accidental death versus life insurance. And bizarrely, how to make a fall look accidental. "Daniel, Why are you looking up hiking accidents? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. He barely looked up from his phone. What? Oh, I saw a news story about someone dying on Long's Peak. Got curious about statistics. You know how those rabbit holes go. And how to make a fall look accidental? Now he looked up, and for just a second, his expression was blank. Caught. Then he laughed. I was reading a mystery novel. The plot involves a staged hiking accident. I was fact-checking the author's research. You know how I am about accuracy. It was a reasonable explanation. Daniel did read thrillers. He did get annoyed at plot holes and bad research, but something felt wrong. I just couldn't articulate what. The third incident happened in April, when Daniel suddenly became very interested in my life insurance policies. We each had $2 million in coverage, more than adequate, but not excessive for professionals with our income and a child to protect. But Daniel wanted to increase mine. Rachel, with the business worth what it is now, $2 million isn't enough. We should bump you up to $5 million, maybe even $7 million. $7 million? Daniel, that's excessive. The business has insurance to cover a buyout. Emma's college is funded. Our house is paid off. Why would we need that much? What if Emma wants to go to medical school? What if she needs a down payment on a house someday? What if you die and I need to hire help with everything you do? $7 million is actually conservative for someone in your position. But the premiums, I can get you a great rate through my brokerage. Let me handle it. This is literally what I do, Rachel. Trust me. And I did trust him. So I signed the papers he put in front of me, barely reading them, increasing my life insurance to $7 million with Daniel as the sole beneficiary. Looking back, I should have questioned why he was so insistent. Why he needed me to have that much coverage. Why he kept bringing up scenarios where I died. But you don't question your spouse's motives when you've been married for 16 years and trust them completely. You assume they have your best interests at heart. The fourth red flag should have been impossible to miss, but I was too busy with work to notice the pattern. Daniel started suggesting hiking trips with unusual frequency, and always to trails with significant elevation, exposed ridges, and dangerous drop-offs. Let's do Long's Peak next weekend, he'd suggest. Or what about Capitol Peak? I know it's technical, but you're in great shape. Daniel, Capitol Peak is one of the most dangerous 14ers in Colorado. It's got the knife edge section where people literally die every year. That's what makes it exciting. Come on, when did you become so cautious? But I wasn't being cautious. I was being sensible. Capitol Peak in early season with snow still on the knife edge was objectively dangerous. Daniel had never been reckless about hiking before. Why was he suddenly pushing for more dangerous terrain? I deflected most of his suggestions, claiming I was too busy with work or that Emma needed me on weekends. But Daniel persisted. He'd show me photos of trails, talk about how we used to be more adventurous, suggest we needed to prioritize our marriage instead of just work. We're getting older, Rachel. Emma will be in college in a few years. When's the last time we did something that made us feel alive? The fifth red flag came in June when I noticed Daniel and Jennifer spending an unusual amount of time together. Jennifer and I were business partners and close friends. Of course, she was around our house sometimes. But Daniel started having lunch with her without mentioning it. I'd see charges on his credit card for restaurants I knew Jennifer liked. When I'd ask about his day, he'd gloss over details. How was your day? I asked one evening. Fine. Busy. Had lunch with a potential client. Where? That Italian place on Larimer. Why? Just curious. How'd it go? Probably won't pan out. Anyway, how was your day? He pivoted quickly, changing the subject. Later, I mentioned the restaurant to Jennifer casually. Have you been to that new Italian place on Larimer? Oh yeah, it's great. Daniel and I went there last week to discuss. She stopped abruptly. I went there recently. It's good. Why had she almost said she went with Daniel? Why had she caught herself? I felt a cold suspicion forming, but immediately felt guilty. Jennifer was my business partner and friend. Daniel was my husband. They probably had run into each other, grabbed lunch, and forgot to mention it. There was no reason to be paranoid, except there was a reason. There were multiple reasons. I was just too trusting to see the pattern. The sixth incident happened in July when I overheard part of a phone conversation. Daniel was in our garage, talking on his cell, and didn't realize I'd come home early. I heard his voice through the door. Can't wait much longer. The opportunity has to be soon, before she gets suspicious. I know it's risky, but we've planned every detail. It'll look completely natural. $2 million from the business insurance, $7 million from the life policy, plus her 401k and investments. We're talking close to $10 million total. Yes, I'm sure. Stop worrying. This time in 2 months, it'll all be over. I stood frozen in our kitchen. 2 months until what would be over? What opportunity? Why was Daniel discussing my insurance policies and investments with someone? When he came inside, I confronted him carefully. Daniel, who were you on the phone with? A client. Why? It sounded like you were discussing my finances. His face remained smooth. Too smooth. I was using a hypothetical scenario to explain estate planning concepts. You know how I have to dumb things down for people who don't understand insurance. It sounded specific. You mentioned exact dollar amounts. Rachel, you're being paranoid. I was literally just explaining to a client how business succession and life insurance coordination works. I use numbers similar to ours because that's what I'm familiar with. That's all. He was annoyed now, defensive, and I felt foolish for questioning him. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe work stress was making me hear threats where there were none. The seventh red flag came in late July when Daniel planned an anniversary trip for us. Our 18th anniversary was in September, and he wanted to do something special. Just you and me. Emma can stay with your mom. We'll do a challenging hike, stay in a nice lodge, reconnect. What do you think? That sounds perfect. Where? I'm thinking we do the Chicago Basin route to the 314ers, Wyndham Peak, Sunlight Peak, and Mount Eolus. It's remote, beautiful, challenging but doable for you. We can take 3 days, camp overnight, really disconnect. Remote. That word stuck with me. Remote meant no cell service. Remote meant no other hikers around. Remote meant if something happened, help would be hours away. That's pretty ambitious, I said carefully. Maybe something less remote? What about Greys and Tories? They're easier and closer to civilization. Daniel's face flickered with frustration. Rachel, you used to love adventure? When did you become so risk-averse? I'm not risk-averse. I'm being practical. We're in our 40s now, not our 20s. 45 isn't old. Come on, it'll be like when we first started dating. Just us and the mountains. Trust me, it'll be amazing. But that word, trust, suddenly felt loaded. Dangerous. Why did I need to trust him? Why was he pushing so hard for a remote, challenging hike where we'd be completely alone? My anxiety was growing, but I had no concrete evidence. Just a collection of strange comments, suspicious browser histories, overheard phone fragments, and a growing feeling that something was very, very wrong. Then, in August, I found something that should have made everything clear. I was looking for a file in Daniel's home office when I found a folder labeled Financial Planning. Inside were detailed spreadsheets tracking my assets, my life insurance, beneficiaries, my business ownership value, and my 401k balance. There was also a timeline with cryptic notes. SEPI T, anniversary trip, Octa T, execute plan. NOV, claim policies. DEC, business, buyout complete. JAN, clear to move forward. Move forward with what? Execute what plan? I photographed every page with my phone. I didn't know what I was documenting yet, but my forensic accounting instincts screamed that this was evidence of something. I just didn't know what. I showed the photos to my therapist during my next appointment. I'd been seeing Dr. Sandra Chen for stress management related to running the business. Sandra, am I being paranoid? Or does this look like my husband is planning something? She studied the images carefully. Rachel, I'm not a forensic expert, but this looks like someone doing very detailed financial analysis of what they'd receive if you died. Have you felt safe at home lately? The question stunned me. Safe? Daniel would never hurt me. I'm not saying he would. I'm saying these documents, combined with everything else you've told me, the insurance increases, the dangerous hiking suggestions, the suspicious phone calls, it forms a concerning pattern. Rachel, I think you should talk to someone. Maybe a lawyer? Maybe even the police. I can't accuse my husband of planning to hurt me based on spreadsheets and gut feelings. I'd look insane. Or you'd look like a woman trusting her very well-trained instincts for pattern recognition. You're a forensic accountant, Rachel. What would you tell a client who showed you this evidence? I knew the answer. I'd tell them to document everything, gather more evidence, and protect themselves immediately. But this wasn't a client's finances. This was my marriage, my husband, the father of my daughter. I couldn't believe Daniel was planning to hurt me. I wouldn't believe it until the phone call that changed everything. The call that exposed everything happened on August 14th, 2015, a Friday evening. I was home early, around 5:30 p.m., preparing dinner in our kitchen. Emma was at a sleepover with friends. Daniel had texted that he was leaving his office and would be home in 20 minutes. My phone rang. Daniel calling. I answered while stirring pasta sauce. "Hey, babe," he said, his tone normal and casual. "Just wanted to check if we need anything from the store before I head home." "We're good. I'm making pasta. Just get home safely." "Perfect. Love you." "Love you too." I heard a click, like he'd hung up. I set my phone down on the counter and went back to cooking, humming along to music playing from my speaker. The call was still connected on my phone screen, but I didn't notice. The screen had gone dark. About 30 seconds later, I heard Daniel's voice coming from my phone. Not the speaker, the phone's earpiece, but loud enough that I heard it clearly in the quiet kitchen. "Yeah, I'm on my way." "No, she bought it completely. Thinks everything is fine." I grabbed the phone. The call was still active. Daniel had never actually hung up. He was talking to someone, and he had no idea I could hear everything. My hand was shaking as I turned off my music and pressed the phone to my ear. "The anniversary trip is perfect," Daniel was saying. "Chicago Basin is remote as hell. No cell service. The trail to Wyndham Peak has sections where one wrong step means a 1,000-foot fall. All I need is one moment when she's looking at the view, a quick push, and it's over. Tragic hiking accident. Happens every year in Colorado." My blood went cold. Every cell in my body froze. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. A woman's voice responded, and I recognized it immediately. Jennifer, my business partner, my friend. "Are you absolutely sure no one will suspect anything?" Jennifer asked. "Because if this goes wrong, we're both fucked, Daniel." "It won't go wrong. I've researched every detail. Accidental deaths on 14ers happen constantly. The sheriff's office barely investigates them. They're too common. They'll ask a few questions, do a cursory scene examination, and rule it accidental. I'll be the devastated widower. You'll be the grieving business partner. We wait 6 months for everything to settle. Then we announce our relationship. No one will question it. Widow finds comfort with his late wife's best friend. It's a tale as old as time. And the money? All of it goes to you? $7 million from the life insurance policy. I increased it 6 months ago. $2 million from the business buy-sell agreement. Her 401k is about $800,000. The house is paid off, worth $1.2 million. Her other investments total about $600,000. We're talking close to $12 million total, Jennifer. That's $6 million each once we're together and can access everything. $6 million each. They'd calculated exactly what I was worth dead. Jennifer's voice took on a greedy edge. And Emma? What about her? She'll need support. How do we handle a grieving teenager while we're trying to be together? Emma will be devastated, obviously, but she's 16. She'll go to college in 2 years. We'll set up a trust for her education, play the devoted father and honorary aunt, and then once she's at college, we're free. It's perfect timing, actually. A few more years and she'd be old enough to really question our relationship. But at 16, she'll just want comfort and stability. We'll provide that until she's out of the house. They were discussing my daughter's grief like it was a logistics problem. My daughter, who Daniel claimed to love unconditionally, was just an obstacle to manage on their way to my money. What about the actual moment? Jennifer asked. How do you make sure she falls? I've scouted the route 3 times. There's a section on Wyndham Peak about 200 feet from the summit. Narrow ridge, exposure on both sides, loose rock. I'll suggest we take photos there. She'll be focused on the view, her camera, the moment. I'll position myself behind her, wait until she's right at the edge, and give her a hard shove. She'll fall at least 800 feet down the north face. Even if the fall doesn't kill her instantly, she'll be so broken and remote that by the time I hike out and get help, she'll be dead. They'll say she lost her balance on the loose rock. Classic summit accident. I was physically shaking now, tears streaming silently down my face. The man I'd been married to for 18 years was calmly describing how he planned to murder me, push me off a mountain, watch me fall to my death. You've really thought this through, Jennifer said, and she sounded impressed, admiring. I've been planning for a year, ever since I realized Rachel was never going to step back from the business and just be a wife. She's too ambitious, too successful, too fucking independent. I thought I married someone who'd be my partner, but instead, I married someone who makes me feel small. Do you know what it's like having a wife who earns twice what you do? Having everyone congratulate her success while I'm just Rachel's husband? Going to parties where everyone asks about her business and barely acknowledges I exist? So that was it. Resentment, wounded ego. He couldn't handle that I'd been more successful, so he'd decided to kill me for it and take my money as compensation for his bruised pride. I get it, Jennifer said softly. She's always been the star. Even in our partnership, it's the Rachel show. Clients love her. She gets the recognition. I do just as much work, but she's the name everyone knows. I'm tired of being in her shadow too. My business partner, the woman I'd trusted enough to start a company with, resented me just as much as my husband did. They were both so jealous of my success that they'd decided to murder me for it. 2 more weeks, Daniel said. September 5th is our anniversary trip. We leave Friday morning, camp Friday night, summit Saturday morning. By Saturday afternoon, Rachel will be dead. By Saturday evening, I'll be reporting the tragic accident. By Sunday, everyone will be offering condolences. By Monday, the insurance claims begin. I can barely wait, Jennifer said. I'm so tired of pretending to be her friend, smiling at her jokes, listening to her talk about her perfect marriage while I'm fucking her husband. It's exhausting. How long have we been together now? Daniel asked. 3 years? 3 years of sneaking around. 3 years of cheap motels and lies. But soon we'll have everything. Her money, her business, her house. Everything she built, we'll take. Poetic justice, really. I should go, Daniel said. I'm almost home. She's making dinner, completely oblivious. God, she's so trusting, so naive. Part of me almost feels bad. Don't feel bad. She's had everything handed to her. Success, money, respect. Meanwhile, we've worked just as hard and gotten nothing. This is just leveling the playing field. You're right. Okay, I'll call you later tonight after she's asleep. I love you, Jennifer. I love you too. 2 more weeks, baby. Just 2 more weeks and we're free. The call ended. Actually ended this time, and I stood in my kitchen, pasta sauce bubbling forgotten on the stove, holding a phone that had just recorded my own husband planning my murder. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like the room was spinning, like reality had fractured into something unrecognizable. The man I'd loved for 18 years, the man I'd built a life with, the man who'd held my hand during labor and cried at our daughter's birth, the man who'd promised to love and protect me. He was planning to push me off a mountain and watch me fall to my death in 2 weeks. And my business partner, my friend, was helping him, counting down the days until she could have my husband, my business, and my money. My phone was still in my hand. The call had recorded automatically because I'd been using a recording app for business calls. I often recorded client consultations for note-taking purposes, and the app captured all incoming calls by default. 23 minutes of crystal-clear audio of my husband and business partner discussing my murder in explicit detail. I grabbed my laptop and immediately backed up the recording to 3 different cloud services. I emailed it to myself. I texted it to my personal phone. I saved it to an external hard drive. I was a forensic accountant. I knew evidence preservation. This recording was my life insurance policy. Ironic, given that Daniel's actual life insurance policy on me was his motivation to kill me. Then I collapsed on my kitchen floor and sobbed. Not just from fear, though I was terrified, but from grief. The man I'd loved didn't exist. He'd never existed. The marriage I'd believed in was a lie. My business partner had betrayed me. My entire life, 18 years of it, had been built on a foundation of lies. I heard Daniel's car pull into the driveway. He was home. The man who was planning to kill me was walking into our house right now, expecting dinner and normalcy. I had maybe 30 seconds to pull myself together, to hide the fact that I knew everything, to play the role of the clueless, trusting wife he expected. I wiped my tears, splashed cold water on my face at the kitchen sink, and stirred the pasta sauce with shaking hands. When Daniel walked in, I was plating pasta like nothing had changed. "Smells great," he said, kissing my cheek. His lips on my skin made me feel physically ill. "Sorry I took so long. Traffic was terrible." "No problem. Dinner's ready." We sat down at our dining table, the same table where we'd had thousands of meals, celebrated birthdays, discussed Emma's report cards, made vacation plans. And now, I sat across from a man who was planning to murder me, pretending everything was fine. "How was your day?" he asked, twirling pasta on his fork. "Busy. Client, meetings, the usual. How about yours?" "Same. Boring insurance stuff. Hey, I confirmed our anniversary trip reservations. We're all set for September 5th. Chicago Basin. 3 days. Just us. Are you excited?" He was looking at me with such false warmth, such manufactured affection, testing me, making sure I was still planning to walk into his trap. "I'm excited," I lied, forcing a smile. "It'll be nice to disconnect and just be together." That's what I'm thinking. Some quality time before Emma goes to college and our lives get crazy in a different way. He reached across the table and took my hand. I love you so much, Rachel. These 18 years with you have been the best of my life. Lies. All lies. He loved Jennifer. He loved my money. He didn't love me at all. I love you too, I said, the words tasting like poison in my mouth. After dinner, Daniel went to watch TV while I cleaned up the kitchen. As soon as I was alone, I texted my lawyer, Michelle Brennan, who'd been my attorney for years and who I trusted completely. Michelle, I need to see you first thing Monday morning. Urgent. Don't tell anyone, not even your paralegal. This is life or death. I'll explain everything then. She responded immediately. Rachel, are you safe? Do you need to call police? I'm safe for now, but I need legal advice before I do anything. Monday morning, please. I'll be there. Call me if anything changes. That night, I lay in bed next to Daniel, my husband of 18 years, knowing he was planning to kill me in 2 weeks. He fell asleep easily, his breathing deep and even. The sleep of someone with a clear conscience, or a complete sociopath. I didn't sleep at all. I lay there in the darkness, listening to the breathing of the man who wanted me dead, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to be a victim. I wasn't going to run or hide or confront him emotionally. I was going to use every skill I'd developed as a forensic accountant to gather evidence, build an airtight case, and destroy both him and Jennifer completely. Not just survive. Win. They wanted my money, my business, my life. I was going to make sure they got nothing but prison cells. If this resonates with you, if you've ever felt something was off in your relationship but couldn't prove it, please hit that like button and subscribe. Because what happened next, the evidence I gathered, the trap I set, the arrests, might help someone else recognize the signs before it's too late. That weekend was the longest of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal while knowing my husband was planning to murder me. I made breakfast. I did laundry. I smiled and chatted with Emma when she came home from her sleepover. I watched a movie with Daniel on Saturday night, his arm around me, while internally I was screaming. But while I played the oblivious wife, I was also gathering evidence methodically and strategically. First, I went through every financial document in Daniel's home office when he left for a bike ride on Saturday morning. I photographed everything, the spreadsheets tracking my assets, notes about insurance policies, a printed email exchange with Jennifer discussing the plan, and a handwritten timeline in his desk drawer that literally read, Sept 5, Anniversary Trip, Sept 6, Execute, Sept 7, Report Accident, Sept 15, File Insurance Claims, OCT 1, Jennifer and I public. Execute. He'd written the word execute like it was a business task. I found evidence of their affair dating back 3 years. Hotel receipts, romantic cards Jennifer had written to Daniel, photos of them together at places I'd never been. There was a credit card statement showing he'd bought Jennifer a $5,000 diamond bracelet last Valentine's Day while giving me grocery store flowers. Most damningly, I found a folder with research Daniel had compiled. News articles about hiking deaths in Colorado, printed pages about how accidental death investigations work, notes about which trails had the highest fatality rates, and a detailed topographical map of Wyndham Peak with a specific spot circled in red, the place he planned to push me. I photographed and scanned everything, uploading it all to a secure cloud account Daniel didn't know existed. Second, I checked our financial accounts and discovered disturbing activity. Daniel had been quietly liquidating his retirement account over the past 6 months, $80,000 withdrawn in increments small enough to avoid triggering alerts. I traced the money to a new account he'd opened in only his name at a different bank. He was already moving money around, preparing for my death. More concerning, he'd taken out a $500,000 loan against his business 2 months ago. Where had that money gone? I pulled his business banking records. Thankfully, I had access as his wife and emergency contact, and discovered he'd used $300,000 to buy a condo in Jennifer's name. They already had a love nest set up, purchased with borrowed money he planned to repay with my life insurance proceeds. Third, I accessed Daniel's phone records and email through our shared family account. The volume of communication between him and Jennifer was staggering. Hundreds of texts and emails over the past 3 years. I downloaded everything. Their messages were a gold mine of evidence. Jennifer to Daniel, March 2015. I'm tired of watching her have everything. The business should be mine. You should be mine. How much longer? Daniel to Jennifer, April 2015. Soon, baby. I'm working on the plan. Just need the right opportunity. The anniversary trip is perfect. Remote, dangerous, completely believable. Jennifer to Daniel, June 2015. What if someone suspects? What if they investigate? Daniel to Jennifer, June 2015. They won't. Hiking deaths are so common in Colorado that unless there's obvious evidence of foul play, they're automatically ruled accidental. I've researched this extensively. We'll be fine. Jennifer to Daniel, July 2015. I love you. I can't wait to not have to hide anymore. 2 more months and she's gone. Then everything changes. They'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. This wasn't a crime of passion or sudden impulse. This was calculated, premeditated murder. Fourth, I reviewed our life insurance policies and discovered something horrifying. Daniel had increased my coverage to $7 million as he'd told me, but he'd also added an accidental death rider that doubled the payout for deaths from accidents. If I died hiking, he wouldn't get $7 million. He'd get $14 million, plus the business buyout, my investments, and our shared assets. Jennifer stood to inherit my half of the business, worth about $5 million, through our partnership agreement's buyout provisions if I died. Combined with Daniel's insurance windfall, they'd split close to $20 million. I'd been building wealth and success my entire adult life, and my husband and business partner had decided to murder me for it. On Sunday, I met my mother for lunch while Daniel was playing golf, actually probably meeting Jennifer, but I pretended to believe his golf story. I told my mother everything. "Rachel, you need to go to the police right now," she said, her face white with shock. "I will, Mom. But I need to meet with my attorney first. I need to understand my legal position and make sure I handle this correctly. If I go to the police with just a recording and circumstantial evidence, Daniel's lawyers might get it suppressed or explained away. I need an airtight case." "What if he tries something before September 5th? What if he gets impatient?" "He won't. His plan is specific. The hiking trip, the remote location, the timeline. He's been too methodical to rush it now. I have 2 weeks to build my case and stop him. I want you to come stay with me. Bring Emma. Just get out of that house." "I can't, Mom. If I leave suddenly, he'll know something's wrong. He might run, or destroy evidence, or change his plans. I need him to think everything is normal until I'm ready to spring the trap." My mother looked terrified for me, but she understood. "Okay, but you call me every day, twice a day. And if anything feels off, you get out immediately. Promise me." "I promise." Monday morning, I met with Michelle Brennan at her law office downtown. I played her the recording of Daniel and Jennifer discussing my murder. Her face went from concerned to horrified to furious in the span of those 23 minutes. "Rachel, this is one of the clearest cases of conspiracy to commit murder I've ever heard. Your husband is literally describing, in detail, how he plans to kill you. This recording alone is enough to have him arrested. What about admissibility? Can it be used in court? Colorado is a one-party consent state for recordings. You were technically a party to the call. It was your phone line. The fact that Daniel didn't realize you were still connected doesn't matter legally. This is admissible. Combined with the financial evidence you've gathered, the emails, the texts, the timeline he wrote, this is an overwhelming case. What do I do next? We go to the police, today, right now. We bring all the evidence you've gathered. We have them arrest Daniel and Jennifer for conspiracy to commit murder. And we make sure they never have a chance to execute their plan. Will I need to testify? Absolutely. This will go to trial unless they plead guilty, which they probably won't given how much is at stake. You'll have to take the stand, explain what you heard, present the evidence. Rachel, are you prepared for that? I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to put them in prison and protect Emma. Okay. I'm calling Detective Robert Martinez at Denver PD. He's the best detective I know for this kind of case. Let's get this started. 2 hours later, I sat in an interview room at Denver Police Department headquarters, telling my story to Detective Martinez and his partner, Detective Sarah Kim. I played them the recording. I showed them the evidence I'd gathered, the spreadsheets, the emails, the texts, Daniel's research files, the financial transfers, the condo purchased in Jennifer's name. Detective Martinez's expression was grim. Mrs. Morrison, your husband and business partner have committed conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. This is one of the most well-documented conspiracy cases I've seen. Most people planning murders are smart enough not to discuss it so explicitly. The recording alone is damning, but combined with everything else you've found, this is a prosecutor's dream. What happens now? We need to move fast. If they suspect you know anything, they might accelerate their timeline or flee. We'll obtain arrest warrants today for both Daniel Chen and Jennifer Hayes. We'll arrest them simultaneously tomorrow morning. Him at his office, her at yours. We'll search both their homes and offices for additional evidence. And Mrs. Morrison, we'll need you to stay somewhere safe during the arrests in case they've taken precautions we don't know about. I have a daughter, Emma. She's 16. We'll coordinate the arrests for when she's at school so she's not present. But Rachel, may I call you Rachel? You need to prepare yourself for what's coming. Your daughter will find out her father tried to have you killed. That's traumatic. You'll need support systems in place. I know. I've been thinking about nothing else since Friday. Detective Kim leaned forward. Rachel, I have to ask, are you safe tonight? Tomorrow morning until we make the arrests? I think so. Daniel's plan is specific to the anniversary trip. He won't deviate from it. He's too methodical, too confident it'll work. Okay, but I want you to wear a wire starting tonight. If he says anything else incriminating, we'll have even more evidence. Are you willing to do that? Thought about having to face Daniel one more time, playing the loving wife while wearing a recording device. But I'd already been doing it for 3 days. What was one more night? Yes, I'll do whatever you need. That evening, wearing a wire provided by Denver PD, I went home and made dinner for my would-be murderer one last time. The final 36 hours before Daniel and Jennifer's arrests required precision planning and extraordinary acting. I had to maintain the charade of normalcy while working with law enforcement to coordinate their takedown. Tuesday evening, wearing the wire Detective Martinez had given me, I engaged Daniel in conversations designed to elicit more incriminating statements. I was nervous. If he suspected anything, this could go badly. But I also trusted my acting ability. I'd been pretending for 4 days already. I'm getting excited about our anniversary trip, I said over dinner, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. Just 3 more days. Daniel's face lit up, genuine excitement at the prospect of murdering me. Me too. It's been too long since we had an adventure together. No work, no distractions, just us and the mountains. What route did you plan exactly? He pulled out a map, spreading it on our dining table, and showed me the exact trail, the exact peak, even pointing to the red circle marking the spot he'd selected for my murder. The wire caught everything. This section here, he said, pointing to the narrow ridge, is the most spectacular view. We should definitely stop for photos. The exposure is intense. You can see for miles, but it's worth it. Very dramatic. It looks dangerous, I said carefully. It is a little, but that's what makes it memorable. Don't worry, I'll be right behind you. I'll make sure nothing happens. The irony of that statement, that he'd make sure nothing happened when he was planning to push me off a cliff, made me physically ill. But I smiled and nodded like a trusting wife. I trust you completely, I said, knowing the recording would capture that trust he was planning to betray. I know you do, Daniel replied, squeezing my hand. That's what I love about you, Rachel. You have such faith in people. Sometimes I think you're too trusting. Too trusting. He actually said it, on tape, while planning to exploit that trust to commit murder. Later that night, after Daniel fell asleep, I received a text from Detective Martinez. Perfect. The recording is clear. Everything he said about the route, the spot, making sure nothing happens, it's all additional evidence of planning and premeditation. We're executing arrest warrants tomorrow at 8 a.m. Be ready. I barely slept that night, lying next to Daniel, knowing it was the last night he'd spend as a free man. Tomorrow, his entire plan would collapse. Tomorrow, he'd discover that his too trusting wife had actually been 3 steps ahead of him the entire time. Wednesday morning felt surreal. I woke early, made breakfast as usual, and watched Daniel get ready for work. Emma left for school at 7:30 a.m., completely unaware that in 30 minutes her father would be arrested. Have a good day, Daniel said, kissing my forehead before leaving at 7:45. Love you. Love you too, I said automatically, though the words meant nothing anymore. As soon as his car pulled away, I called my mother. Mom, it's happening. The arrests are in 15 minutes. Can you go pick Emma up from school? I don't want her finding out from anyone else. I need to tell her myself. I'm already on my way. Rachel, are you okay? I will be. Once this is over, I will be. At exactly 8:00 a.m., I received a text from Detective Martinez. Arrest in progress. Chen taken into custody at his office. Hayes arrested at your business. Both in custody. Secure. It was over. Daniel and Jennifer were in handcuffs, being read their rights, their murder plot exposed before they could execute it. I sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd overheard their plan 5 days earlier, and finally allowed myself to cry. Not from fear or sadness, but from relief. From the release of days of pretending, of living with someone planning to kill me, of carrying the weight of knowing my marriage was a lie. An hour later, Detective Martinez and Detective Kim arrived at my house. Mrs. Morrison, both suspects are in custody and being processed. They've both lawyered up immediately, refusing to speak. But we executed search warrants on Daniel's office, his car, your business office, and Jennifer's apartment. We found additional evidence, more detailed planning documents, a burner phone Daniel was using to communicate with Jennifer, and in Jennifer's apartment, a celebration card she'd already purchased for after your death. It says, "We're finally free." They'd been so confident I'd be dead by this weekend that Jennifer had already bought a celebration card. What happens next? I asked. They'll be formally charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Given the evidence, the recording, the emails, the texts, the financial planning, Daniel's detailed research, and his own map with the murder location marked, The DA is very confident in prosecution. Bail will be set high. They'll likely remain in custody pending trial. Will Emma have to testify? No. She's not relevant to the case. She had no knowledge of the plot. This is entirely between you, Daniel, and Jennifer. Emma is a victim here too, Rachel. She's lost both her father and her family as she knew it. My mother arrived with Emma an hour later. My daughter walked in confused and frightened. Her grandmother had pulled her out of school with no explanation, just saying we needed to talk. Mom, what's going on? Grandma won't tell me anything. I sat her down and told her everything. I played her the recording, the sanitized version that Detective Martinez had edited to remove the most graphic descriptions of the planned murder but kept the essential conspiracy discussion. I showed her the evidence. I explained that her father and Jennifer had been arrested. Emma's face went through a devastating progression: confusion, disbelief, horror, grief, and finally rage. Dad was going to kill you? Jennifer was helping him? For money? Yes, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I know this is... Are you safe now? They can't hurt you? I'm safe. They're in jail. They can't hurt me. Emma started crying, and I held her while she processed the unfathomable truth that her father had planned to murder her mother. My strong, brilliant daughter sobbed in my arms, grieving the father she'd thought she knew, the reality she'd believed in. I hate him, she said finally. I hate him for what he tried to do to you. I hate him for making me love someone who's capable of this. That's not your fault, Emma. None of this is your fault. You loved who you thought he was. We both did. The man we loved doesn't exist. He was always a lie. Over the next week, while Daniel and Jennifer sat in jail awaiting their preliminary hearings, I focused on two things: protecting Emma and building an even stronger case against her father. My attorney, Michelle, worked with the prosecutors to ensure every piece of evidence was properly documented and admissible. The DA's office called the case one of the most clear-cut conspiracy to commit murder cases in Colorado history. I also had to deal with the business. Jennifer's arrest meant Morrison Hayes' financial partners needed immediate restructuring. I bought out her share at a court-mandated valuation, removed her name from the company, and promoted my senior advisor to partner. The business survived, though several clients left when they learned about the scandal. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for September 15th, 10 days after Daniel had planned to kill me and report my tragic accident. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. I prepared to face him in court, to look him in the eye and testify about the murder he'd planned. And I was ready. Not just to survive, but to win completely. The preliminary hearing began on September 15th, 2015, at Denver District Court. Judge Patricia Reynolds presided over the proceeding that would determine if there was probable cause to charge Daniel Chen and Jennifer Hayes with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The courtroom was packed. Media, colleagues from my firm, other financial professionals, friends who couldn't believe what had happened, and courthouse observers drawn by the sensational nature of the case. My mother sat in the front row with Emma, who'd insisted on being there despite my protests. I need to see him, Mom, Emma had said. I need to look at the man I thought was my father and understand what he really is. Daniel and Jennifer sat at separate defense tables with their respective attorneys. They'd been denied bail. The judge at their arraignment had ruled them flight. Risks given the premeditated nature of their crime and their access to money. Both wore orange jail jumpsuits instead of their usual professional attire. Both looked diminished somehow, smaller than they'd seemed when they were planning my murder. I sat in the witness waiting area, preparing to testify. The prosecution's case was straightforward. Play the recording, present the evidence, and prove conspiracy to commit murder. The defense's strategy would be to claim the recording was taken out of context, that they were discussing a hypothetical scenario, that no actual crime had been committed since I was still alive. But I knew better. And more importantly, I had evidence they didn't know I'd gathered. Assistant District Attorney Kevin Morrison, no relation despite the shared name, presented the opening statement for the prosecution. Your Honor, this is a case about greed, betrayal, and cold-blooded planning. The defendant, Daniel Chen, conspired with his mistress, Jennifer Hayes, to murder his wife, Rachel Morrison, by pushing her off a mountain cliff during an anniversary hiking trip. Their motive was financial: access to nearly $20 million in life insurance proceeds, business assets, and investments. They planned this murder for months, researched the perfect location, selected a timeline, and discussed execution in explicit detail. The only reason Mrs. Morrison is alive today is because her husband forgot to hang up his phone and she overheard the entire conspiracy. Daniel's attorney, Richard Blake, argued that the case was overblown. Your Honor, my client is guilty of having an affair and discussing financial hypotheticals with his mistress. That's immoral, but it's not criminal. The prosecution has no evidence that Daniel Chen ever intended to actually harm his wife. The conversation they recorded was speculation, fantasy talk between lovers, not a genuine murder plan. Without any overt act toward committing the crime, there is no conspiracy. Then it was time for evidence. The prosecution played the recording in its entirety. 23 minutes of Daniel and Jennifer discussing my murder in graphic, specific detail. The courtroom was silent except for the voices coming through the speakers. When it finished, Judge Reynolds looked at Daniel with barely concealed disgust. Mr. Blake, that did not sound like fantasy talk to me. That sounded like a detailed plan to commit murder. Objection, Your Honor. I'm not making a ruling, counsel. I'm making an observation. Continue, Mr. Morrison. Ada Morrison called Detective Martinez to the stand to present the physical evidence they'd seized: Daniel's research files, the map with the murder location marked, the spreadsheets calculating my worth, the financial transfers, the emails and texts between Daniel and Jennifer. The detective held up the map Daniel had marked. This is a topographical map of Wyndham Peak that we found in Mr. Chen's office. You can see here. He pointed to the red circle. He marked a specific location approximately 200 feet from the summit. This location corresponds exactly to the spot he described on the recording as having exposure on both sides, and where one wrong step means a 1,000-foot fall. And did you visit this location, Detective? Yes. I hiked the trail with a forensics team. The location Daniel Chen marked is precisely as he described: a narrow ridge with steep drops on both sides, loose rock, and poor footing. It's exactly the kind of place where a push would cause a fatal fall. Did you find anything else relevant at Mr. Chen's office? Yes. We found a folder containing news articles about hiking deaths in Colorado, printed research about accidental death investigations, and handwritten notes about insurance payout timelines. We also found a calendar where he'd circled September 5th with the notation, "Anniversary trip, execute plan." The word execute had appeared in his own handwriting, on a calendar in his office. It was devastatingly incriminating. Then it was my turn to testify. I walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, and sat facing Daniel for the first time since his arrest. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Jennifer, sitting at her own table, stared at me with pure hatred. Ada Morrison walked me through my testimony. I described our marriage, the business I'd built, the red flags I'd noticed, and the phone call that exposed everything. Mrs. Morrison, when you heard your husband say he was planning to push you off a mountain, what did you think? I thought I was living a nightmare. The man I'd trusted for 18 years, the father of my child, was calmly discussing murdering me like it was a business transaction. I felt terror, betrayal, and grief all at once. What did you do next? I immediately backed up the recording to multiple cloud services. Then I began gathering additional evidence. I photographed documents in Daniel's office, reviewed financial records, accessed email accounts. I'm a forensic accountant. I know how to trace money and document fraud. I used those skills to build a case against my husband. Were you ever tempted to confront him? No, I knew confrontation would be dangerous. If he realized I knew, he might accelerate his plan or flee. I needed him to think everything was normal until law enforcement could intervene. So you continued living with him, pretending you didn't know? For 5 days, yes. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Sharing a home with someone who was actively planning to kill me, pretending to look forward to the trip where he intended to murder me. But I knew it was necessary to protect myself and gather enough evidence to ensure he'd be convicted. Daniel's attorney cross-examined me, trying to poke holes in my testimony. Mrs. Morrison, isn't it true you were angry when you discovered your husband's affair with Ms. Hayes? I was devastated by the affair, but I didn't discover it until after I'd overheard the murder plot. The affair was secondary to the attempted murder. Isn't it convenient that this recording exists? That your husband just happened to forget to hang up at exactly the moment when he was discussing this alleged murder plan? Technological accidents happen, Mr. Blake. My husband called me, we spoke. He thought he hung up, but the call stayed connected. I didn't plan it or stage it. It was random chance that saved my life. But you can't prove the recording is authentic, can you? In this age of AI and audio manipulation, how do we know you didn't fabricate this? Ada Morrison stood. Your Honor, we have a forensic audio analysis from the FBI's laboratory confirming the recording is authentic and unaltered. The defense was provided this report during discovery. Judge Reynolds looked annoyed. Mr. Blake, if you're going to make accusations of fabrication, you need evidence. Do you have any? No, Your Honor, but... Then move on. The defense tried other angles, suggesting I was financially motivated to destroy Daniel, that I'd misunderstood the context of his conversation, that he'd never actually taken any steps toward committing the crime. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recording, the map, the research, the financial planning, the emails, the texts, all of it pointed to one conclusion: premeditated conspiracy to commit murder. Jennifer's attorney tried to distance her from the plan, claiming she was a naive mistress who'd been manipulated by Daniel. But the prosecution played recordings of her actively participating in planning discussions. Her emails showing equal enthusiasm for the murder, and her "We're finally free" celebration card purchased before my scheduled death. The preliminary hearing lasted 2 days. At the end, Judge Reynolds delivered her ruling. I find that there is probable cause to believe Daniel Chen and Jennifer Hayes conspired to commit first-degree murder. The evidence presented, particularly the recorded conversation, the physical planning documents, and the financial motive, establishes a clear conspiracy to murder Mrs. Morrison. Both defendants will be bound over for trial. I'm denying bail for both defendants as they remain flight risks and dangers to Mrs. Morrison. Trial is set for January 15, 2016. Daniel's face crumbled. Jennifer started crying. Their attorneys argued for bail reconsideration, but Judge Reynolds was unmoved. As deputies led them back to jail, Daniel finally looked at me. His expression was complicated: anger, regret, disbelief that his plan had failed. I stared back, showing no emotion. I'd cried for 18 years of lies. I'd grieved the husband who'd never really existed. Now I just felt cold satisfaction that justice was coming. Emma squeezed my hand as we left the courtroom. Mom, you were amazing. You beat him. Not yet, sweetheart, but soon. The trial was set for January. 4 months to prepare. for the final confrontation that would send my would-be murderers to prison for life. The trial of Daniel Chen and Jennifer Hayes began on January 15, 2016, and lasted 3 weeks. The evidence presented was even more damning than at the preliminary hearing. The prosecution brought in expert witnesses on financial fraud, hiking accident patterns, and forensic audio analysis. They showed the jury the map with the murder location marked. They played the recording multiple times. They presented hundreds of emails and texts between Daniel and Jennifer discussing the plot. Most powerfully, they had me testify in detail about the 18-year marriage built on lies, the red flags I'd noticed, and the terror of living with someone planning my murder while pretending everything was normal. The defense's strategy fell apart quickly. They tried to argue the conversation was hypothetical, but the jury heard Daniel's specific planning, the exact location, the exact method, the exact timeline. They tried to claim no crime had been committed since I was still alive, but Colorado law is clear. Conspiracy to commit murder is a crime even if the murder isn't completed. They tried to paint me as a vindictive wife exaggerating an affair into attempted murder, but the physical evidence, Daniel's own handwritten notes, his marked map, his research files, contradicted that narrative completely. Jennifer's defense tried to throw Daniel under the bus, claiming he'd manipulated her, but her own emails showed she was an eager participant who resented me just as much as Daniel did. The celebration card she'd purchased before my scheduled death was particularly damning. The jury couldn't reconcile I was manipulated with someone buying a "we're finally free" card in anticipation of my death. The prosecution's closing argument was devastating. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've heard Rachel Morrison's husband and business partner discuss murdering her in explicit detail. You've seen the map marking where they'd push her. You've read the emails calculating how they'd split her money. You've seen the timeline planning when to report the accident. This isn't alleged murder. It's proven conspiracy. These defendants planned every detail of how to kill a wife, a business partner, a mother. The only reason Rachel Morrison is alive is luck, a forgotten phone line that stayed connected. Don't let that luck be wasted. Hold these conspirators accountable for the murder they planned, even if they never got the chance to execute it. The jury deliberated for 9 hours. When they returned, the forewoman delivered the verdicts. In the case of the people of Colorado versus Daniel Chen, Count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. We find the defendant guilty. Daniel collapsed in his chair. His attorney grabbed his arm to steady him. Jennifer's verdict was identical. Guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Judge Reynolds set sentencing for 6 weeks later. Under Colorado law, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder carries a sentence of 12 to 32 years in prison. Given the premeditated nature, the extended planning period, and the complete lack of remorse shown by either defendant, the prosecution recommended the maximum. At sentencing, I gave a victim impact statement. I stood at the podium facing Daniel and Jennifer, finally able to say everything I'd held back. For 18 years, I believed I was married to my best friend. I believed we were building a life together based on love and partnership. But that was a lie. Daniel didn't love me. He resented me. He resented my success, my independence, my ambition. And when I inherited money, he couldn't access. He decided killing me was easier than accepting that I was my own person with my own achievements. Jennifer, I trusted you as a business partner and friend. We built a company together. I celebrated your victories and supported you through challenges. And you repaid that by sleeping with my husband and helping him plan my murder so you could take my business and my money. You both calculated what I was worth dead, $20 million split between you. But you never calculated what I was worth alive. I was worth an 18-year marriage. I was worth a partnership that could have lasted decades. I was worth a daughter's intact family. You threw all of that away for money. Because of you, my daughter lost her father. Not to death, but to his own greed and cruelty. She'll carry that trauma forever. I hope you think about that every single day you spend in prison. Judge Reynolds sentenced each of them to 32 years in prison without possibility of parole for the first 16 years. Mr. Chen, Ms. Hayes, you conspired to commit one of the most selfish, cold-blooded murders I've encountered. You planned to kill a wife, a mother, a successful professional solely for financial gain. You showed no remorse during trial. In fact, you continued to justify your actions. This court shows you the same mercy you planned to show Mrs. Morrison. None. The financial consequences were equally severe. I sued both of them in civil court for emotional distress, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. I was awarded $8 million in damages from Daniel's business assets and retirement accounts. Jennifer's share of our business, worth $5 million, was seized and awarded to me. The condo Daniel had purchased in Jennifer's name was sold, with proceeds going to me. I recouped every penny they'd planned to steal and more. I restructured my business completely, renaming it Morrison Financial Partners and building it into an even more successful firm. Clients who'd left during the scandal returned when they saw my resilience. New clients came specifically because they admired how I'd survived and fought back. Within 2 years, my business was managing twice the assets it had before. Emma struggled with therapy for years to process her father's betrayal, but she's thriving now. A college sophomore studying criminal justice, determined to help other victims of domestic violence and financial fraud. My life now is peaceful in ways it never was during my marriage. I wake up safe. I make my own decisions. I know exactly where I stand with everyone in my life. The man who planned to kill me will die in prison. The business partner who betrayed me lost everything, and I have the satisfaction of knowing I didn't just survive. I won completely. 5 years have passed since I overheard that phone call that saved my life. I've had time to process, heal, and understand what happened and how I survived. These are the lessons I want to share, lessons that might save someone else's life. First, trust your instincts. For months before the phone call, I'd noticed red flags, strange financial questions, suspicious browser histories, unusual behavioral changes. I rationalized them because I didn't want to believe my husband could hurt me. But my instincts were screaming warnings I chose to ignore. If something feels wrong in your relationship, investigate. Don't dismiss your gut feelings as paranoia. Second, financial motive is powerful and dangerous. Daniel didn't try to kill me because he hated me. He tried to kill me because I became worth more dead than alive. Life insurance, inheritances, business assets, these create terrible incentives for bad people. Protect yourself legally and financially, especially if you have significant assets or a spouse who seems overly interested in insurance policies and estate planning. Third, document everything. The accidental recording saved my life, but the evidence I gathered afterwards, the spreadsheets, emails, research files, financial transfers, built the case that convicted them. If you suspect your spouse is planning something terrible, gather evidence methodically. Take photos, save emails, record conversations where legal, copy financial documents. Evidence is the difference between being believed and being dismissed. Fourth, expertise matters. I'm a forensic accountant trained to follow money trails and spot financial fraud. When I discovered the conspiracy, I used those professional skills to gather evidence, track financial movements, and build an airtight case. Your professional skills, whatever they are, can be your advantage in protecting yourself. Use them. Fifth, you don't have to confront to win. I never confronted Daniel or Jennifer before their arrests. I gathered evidence silently, worked with law enforcement strategically, and let the legal system handle the confrontation. Sometimes, the smartest move is quiet preparation rather than dramatic confrontation. Most importantly, I learned that survival means fighting back with intelligence rather than emotion. I was devastated, terrified, and heartbroken. But I channeled those feelings into methodical evidence gathering and legal strategy. I let my head lead rather than my heart. That's what kept me alive and got them convicted. To everyone watching who has noticed financial irregularities, overheard suspicious conversations, or felt that something is terribly wrong in their marriage, pay attention, document, protect yourself. Reach out to attorneys and law enforcement. You deserve to be safe. Thank you for watching my story. If it resonated with you, please subscribe for more stories of survival and justice. And if you suspect your partner is planning to hurt you, please contact domestic violence resources or law enforcement immediately. Remember, sometimes survival comes down to one moment of luck, an accidentally open phone line, but turning that luck into justice requires courage, intelligence, and determination. Trust yourself. Gather evidence. Fight back. Your life is worth defending.